Hello, and you are very welcome to this week's episode of Let's Go Green here on Midlands 103. I hope you are safe and well as you tune into the show this week. We have a packed show for you this week. We will be joined shortly by Laurence O'Reilly of the Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland, all about their efforts to support communities become more sustainably and biodiversity minded, particularly the work he's doing with Tidy Towns groups. We'll also be learning about the Pollinator for Schools programme, which has opened. So if you are a school in the Midlands and you'd like to find out how you can get involved, please do stay tuned to the show. We're also talking to a Let's Go Green listener who is on a mission to create a community garden for Tullamore. And yes, we're heading towards Easter Sunday, which means Easter eggs and an awful lot of recycling to be done. So we will have the expert here from Repak to tell you what to do with your Easter recycling, how to do it, where it should go, and how to make sure that it all gets recycled properly. But first things first, as I said, we are joined by the newly appointed Ambassador Laurence O'Reilly. Laurence, you're very welcome back to the show. Please tell us, how did you become an ambassador?
It's lovely to be back with you, Aisling. And ambassador sounds like a funny one. Put a bit of context on that for any of your listeners. So I am currently occupying the role as one of many EU Climate Pact ambassadors in Ireland, but also across the European Union. And for any of your listeners that might not be familiar with what that is, it is essentially a program that's funded through the European Union Commission, and it's all about supporting awareness, encouraging action, as well as connecting people who are involved in the conversation or the action of climate action across like all of the various different teams that fall in under what would be climate action.
That's a huge job, but like you're right to point out, there's so many facets to all of this work, and there's so many different community groups involved and different people from maybe perhaps environmental and scientific backgrounds. It's quite a job of work to do.
It is quite a job of work to do, but to be fair, it's a really well established, really well supported network. So you have, at a European level, you have the Secretariat who is involved with managing this at a really high level, but they're then supported by country coordinators. So each member state will have their own designated country coordinator. And within Ireland, we have the Southeast Energy Agency who occupy that role. A shout out to Edema, who is our fantastic colleague there within the Southeast Energy Agency, who has been really helping all of the Pact ambassadors, the EU Pact ambassadors in Ireland. And then below that level, then you have the EU Pact ambassadors. And that is made up of all of those various different skills and interests, whether it be academic, whether it be industry, whether it be general citizens, as well as, like, I'm coming at it from our role with the Sustainable Energy Communities Programme under the SCAI. So, like, you have all of these various different skills and supports that come in to kind of strengthen the broad range of knowledge that is there, but also, like, many hands as well achieve lots of stuff. So all of those, like, that network helps to lighten that load and get a lot of work done. So it's really, really effective, really, really positive. And it's having a great impact out there. Like, there's loads of little things happening all across the country. And we're going to talk about the sustainability and biodiversity workshops that we're doing currently, but the EU Pact program is involved in supporting and influencing policy, whether it be through youth engagement. They're also involved in, like, tidy town support programs, as well as collaborating with, like, local authorities and various different organizations like that to try and share knowledge, but actually get projects and get work off the ground as well. So really good space. I'd advise anybody who is interested to check it out. Google EU Climate Pact program and you'll find all of the details there around registration or what events might be happening within your locality, and go from there.
Now, you mentioned, community groups there, and we are now, like, the clocks have sprung forward. We're well and truly into the springtime period. And I even know that the Tidy Towns group in Tullamore over the weekend had a big spring clean. But you were also out and about over the weekend as well, delivering one of these workshops, because the Tidy Towns programme in particular, now it's not the only group that's involved in climate action. It's not, it's not the only competition that's out there, but it is one that requires quite a lot of work. And a lot of it is around maybe litter collecting and making, painting maybe benches around towns and villages. But in recent years, it has gotten more inclined towards sustainability and biodiversity. And that means those volunteers have to learn all about it. And part of your work, you've been helping people with that.
Yeah, Ashley, I won't claim to be an expert in the Tidy Towns programme. I'm based in Geishel here, which is a really active, fantastic group. So shout out to the Geishel Tidy Towns group for all the amazing work they do. But like you said, it's so broad and it has been so broad for years, but it's kind of expanded upon that. And
I remember, really was it Mary? I think the lady's name was Mary White from Abbey Leaks, who at the time when they won an award said that it felt like they needed a PhD to understand the application form for the Tidy Towns competition. There's a lot that goes into it.
There's a lot that goes into it. And what we've seen over the most recent period of the Tidy Towns programme's existence is this kind of alignment with the Sustainable Development Goals as well, and all that brings with it. And we've seen that there's an opportunity there for ourselves as mentors on the Sustainable Energy Communities programme to engage with Tidy Towns groups to help them to understand, one specific subcategory, which is sustainability. But we've also felt, Aisling, that to just talk about energy on its own can actually be quite a challenge to bring the same people into the same conversation all of the time, because I think we have to acknowledge that energy action is quite challenging, and it can take a lot of investment and capital investment. And actually, a lot of the time, people who are involved in the climate space might come into that conversation from the context of actually wanting to reconnect with nature and reconnect with the outdoors. So we've kind of seen a little bit of an opportunity here to build an educational program around the lovely green stuff, which is all the biodiversity action, the circular economy, all that stuff I think that people really like to get involved in. And how can we then segue the energy conversation within that? And then we noticed the opportunity to work more with the Tidy Towns as part of, these groups are already working in this space. So let's look at where the opportunities lie. And it's self-serving for us to a certain degree as well, Aisling. The Sustainable Energy Communities programme, we need people engaged, we need people involved, we need community organisations to participate. And where better to go than really active Tidy Town groups across the community? They're already working in this space. Let's try and help them to do that maybe more effectively or more efficiently.
And as well, the climate change conversation at times can feel overwhelming. It can feel hopeless because of the sheer scale of the problem. But actually, that local community piece is where we can have a real impact, and particularly around supporting biodiversity in our communities, because it's one of those things that when you do the job, you can physically see the benefits.
Yeah, I think people can reconnect and they can really enjoy, and the pride of play starts to evolve and develop from there as well. But also there's some fantastic projects out there, Aisling. My background is energy, and over the last 7-8 years, it's been community development from that context. But now I'm starting to become more exposed to the biodiversity space through the likes of these projects. And what I'm starting to see out there is that there are some fantastic Tidy Town groups out there and other similar groups that are doing wonderful things, from community gardens to food pantries to lovely biodiversity spaces, re-wetting, rewilding, reconnecting with the peatlands. And it's just trying to use that as a platform for ourselves then to build on the energy conversation, because there's so much happening within that space and it's so encouraging to see as well.
You were out in Shinrone over the weekend, I believe.
We were out in the beautiful Belfield House and Gardens, which is a site that is, it's ran by the RHSI, the Royal Horticultural Society of Ireland. And we were first introduced to them from a kind of an SEC, Sustainable Energy Communities Programme perspective a number of years ago, when they met with us to try and understand how they could, tackle energy on site a little bit more. But when I got to site there and I met with Anne and I met with Paul on site there, I was like, this place is beautiful. We have to try and do something here. So the wheels started turning and we were thinking about what we could do. And then all of the stars aligned when we, myself and our colleagues, shout out to Hugh Baxter, based in Longford, an SEC mentor there, submitted an application to the Wheel to get funding for this this series of workshops on biodiversity and sustainability training for Tidy Towns programs, for the Tidy Towns program. And over the past, so we were successful in that application, and we got loads of support to help deliver this alongside, I mentioned the Wheel, but also the SCAI. And over the past 10 months, we've been delivering these workshops across the 5 Midlands counties: Laois, Offaly, Longford, Westmeath and Roscommon. Our task is to deliver 3 of these sustainability and biodiversity workshops within each county, and as it stands, we have delivered 2 in each of the 5 counties, 4 counties with the exception of 1 in Laois, and then we're hoping to do our second in Laois quite soon, dates to be confirmed. And then we will run our final workshop at the kind of September-October period of this year. But Belfield was chosen for the second of the Offaly workshops, and you wouldn't get a better location really, because it connects all of the history of the old house that's there, but also the fantastic work that's happening on the green spaces that are there. So on Saturday we were able to get up to 45 people into the lovely space in Belfield House. We had expert speakers talking about community energy action. We had the hugely experienced Sharon Eastwood, an environmental consultant and also a Tidy Towns adjudicator, deliver loads of great tips on strategic planning and different types of projects from a biodiversity space. And then we were treated to a tour of the gardens, as well as some practical meadow management planting techniques by the really experienced, incredible head gardener out there, Paul Smith. And it was a wonderful day all around. I mean, we had a really good blend of the theoretical stuff, but also the engagement. There was loads of conversation amongst all of the different groups that were there, but also we got the practical piece outside. We got to go out to the gardens, we got to get our hands dirty. And again, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm an expert in the biodiversity space, but I feel like I could certainly go into my garden now and make a good stab at a decent meadow for the years ahead. So it was great, really, really helpful for our community groups to understand how they can affect this space within their tidy towns. And for us in the energy space, hopefully we can see more action stimulated as a result.
And more of these workshops en route, you hope?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be delivering our final tranche of workshops. Looking strategically, we'll be probably looking post Tidy Towns application and all the work that's happening now. We were really happy to get 45 bums on seats on Saturday just gone, because like that, you mentioned Tullamore Tidy Towns doing the spring clean. I know Geisha were at some bits as well over the weekend. Like, all the groups are out and about now, kind of running towards the May 11th deadline of submitting their application. So we're going to let the groups kind of chill out a bit after that. Mm-hmm. And then come August, September, October period, we'll run our last tranche of this. And there's talk of submitting another application to the Training Links and the Wheel organisation to possibly get more funding for expanding this out beyond just the Midlands, and seeing how can we support tidy town groups all across the country to understand more how they could positively impact biodiversity and sustainability action within their communities.
Well, Laurence O'Reilly, Ambassador Laurence O'Reilly of the SCAI, but thank you so much for joining us today to talk to us about that EU Pact grouping and the funding that's available through it, but also about the work that you've been up to recently in helping out all of those community groups that are working to do their bit for biodiversity and sustainability. I'm sure we'll have you back on the show again. Thanks very much for your time, Laurence.
Thanks, Aisling. Look forward to it.
You're listening to Let's Go Green here on Midlands 103. And it is that time of year again when we're joined by Amanda Glancy from SIRO to talk to us about an initiative that we're hoping many schools around the Midlands will get involved in. Amanda, you are very welcome back to Let's Go Green.
Thanks, Aisling. Lovely to be back again. It's great to be getting into spring and being able to talk about flowers and bees versus maybe the winter we had. You know, it seemed like we've been there for a while.
And everything feels so much easier when we do get those moments of sunshine.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And the bright mornings as well.
Yeah,
helping us all get out of the bed, you know.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Amanda, you're here to talk to us about the Pollinator Project, and this is going out to any listener who has any involvement in a school in your locality. This one's for you. So if you're a teacher, a principal, maybe a member of a parents' association, this is something that your school could get involved in. So, Amanda, talk to me about the Pollinator Project. What exactly is it?
Yeah, so we're obviously SIRO, we're a broadband network operator, and we operate right across the Midlands and across Ireland in every county. And we partner with an organisation, a social enterprise organisation called Biodiversity in Schools. There, if you like, their raison d'etre is increasing awareness among schools and school population and students around the importance of biodiversity and nature. So then with them, we sponsor this project, the Pollinator Project, and that, I suppose, is a little bit more niche in that the objective of the project is helping schools protect pollinators in their school environments, but beyond that as well, raising awareness among students around the importance of pollinators, and not just, I mean, a lot of great work happens in the school themselves, but also to take that knowledge home to their own families and their wider communities. And what the project does is we provide the successful schools with a range of resources, and they can include, we have what we call the kits. These are biodiversity kits, little boxes that go to each classroom, and they have resources in there that helps the teachers, learning resources, and they also have practical resources. So we provide things like seeds. Sunflower seeds are an obvious one that schools can then plant on the school grounds. So you're getting the resources, you're also getting knowledge. Another aspect is workshops that happen in the schools, and also online workshops as well, because sometimes the school curriculum can be busy. So it can be easier maybe for teachers to do that hour online where they join in with other schools as part of the workshop, or there's the physical workshop as well where somebody may come to the school. So it's a variety of resources, because we recognise that, you know, some teachers, some things work better for them in their classroom environment, and then other kind of resources would work for other teachers. So it does depend. And I suppose just to say, we try to get to as many children as we can, and the Pollinator Project, or applying for it and being a successful school, it's wider than just schools. So we also we offer it to creches and childcare facilities, and it also applies even to children who are being homeschooled, and then primary and secondary schools. So they're kind of the tiers. And the aim of that is just to make it as broad as possible.
It really is a special project, but there might be some schools listening to us have this conversation today who are thinking this is all very well and good, but we've got maybe a basketball court outside. We don't necessarily have a meadow to do this work in. So what kind of facilities does the school need?
Yeah, no, I mean, some of the schools have huge, relative huge, I suppose, grounds around their school, and they will have beautiful meadows, and they'll obviously we'll go big in on no mow May, but that's not to say some schools have much, as you said, no grounds at all in some cases, unfortunately, but that absolutely doesn't exclude them, because pollinators, by their nature, anything that's growing, you're helping a pollinator there. So even something like growing herbs in a box in the window in the school, that is pollinator friendly. Growing pots outside. There's so many, like, there's nothing that you can't grow, I suppose, that won't help a pollinator. And there's no environment, whether it's home or school, where you can't either grow something, or even if you're not planting or growing something, you're learning about it. So the kids can go home, and if they have, whether they're in an apartment, they'll have a balcony or a window, or even if they're in a larger home, they will have a back garden. And again, they can bring that knowledge home. So it's not an either or. It's the knowledge, I suppose, coming through this project should be applicable to every student, irrespective of their circumstances, and similarly in terms of school grants, whether they have some, none, or loads, And
I know that you and I have had similar conversations over the last couple of years around this kind of work. Like, what have the results of it all been?
Yeah, well, we've been involved with biodiversity in schools and sponsoring the project since 2023. And, I would say this, but genuinely, even I'm always really impressed by the results here, because we've had 144,000 students involved in the project. There are layers within the project. So some students and classes can receive, if you like, specialised training, and we call this training the Pollinator Ambassadors. So they're the leaders within the school who go on, I suppose, to try and influence others within the school community. And we've trained about 16,000 of those. And I suppose if you track maybe the child in third or fourth class, eventually that child goes on to secondary school and they bring that knowledge with them, and beyond that again into their adult lives. So it's I suppose, it's not a kind of a one and done. We like to kind of, if we're imparting that information to people, that they bring it with them all through their lives, and whether they're in a work environment in years to come, that they have that knowledge as well, or they're involved, say, with local, maybe a sporting group or some other community organisation. It is there stored in the memory, and they can then, take, I suppose, pollinator and biodiversity friendly action throughout their lives.
And that is the whole beauty of it, because, if you get into the habit of doing anything like this at a very young age, you're far more likely to keep it going long into adulthood.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's true. And I suppose the message that we like to impart as well is understanding just how important this isn't an abstract issue. About 80% of our food in the EU, so think of your crops, your grains, your fruits, your vegetables, are due to or impacted by pollinators. So, if we were to lose all our pollinators in the morning, all of that is impacted. And, we talk a lot about global food security and supply chains, but if we lose our pollinators, our food supply and the security of that supply is at risk. So it is big picture, and it is really, really important to protect the pollinators that we do have in Ireland and globally. So it's as important as probably any environmental issue, and there's a wide diversity of those, but it's a key issue.
Now, Amanda, what exactly do schools need to do to get involved?
Yeah, so as I said, our partner on this project is an organisation called Biodiversity in Schools. And if you go on the website there is a dedicated web page for the Pollinator Project, and all the information in terms of applying is on that page.
Okay, so we're looking for Biodiversity in Schools. You apply online there. What kind of timeline is involved in something like this? Like when does this all go out to the schools, and do they have until the end of June to do the work, or how does that part of it work?
Yeah, so obviously we're kind of in, if you like, prime planting and growing season. So the project opened for applications on Monday. There's a 3-week application window, if you like, and then relatively quickly after that, if you've been successful, the kits and the resources will start kind of winging their way to you. So obviously the kits will get posted out to the successful schools, and then Biodiversity in Schools themselves will contact the teachers and classes around the workshops and the additional resources as well. So I suppose the objective is to have to receive the kits and the resources, and then to give schools, I suppose, really May and June to the end of the school year, those 2 months to, if you like, activate it. But it's not to say the kits will keep as such, in that if you don't get around to it this year, potentially you could use the kits next spring. But ideally, I suppose, try and get this work done before the end of the school year at the end of June.
Well, Amanda Glancy of SIRO, thank you so much for joining us once again to talk to us about the Pollinator Project for schools. And as Amanda says, from primary up to secondary, every school child in the country, their school and their education or educator can apply for this programme. So you just need to Google Biodiversity in Schools and fill out the application form there. Amanda, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Aisling. Thank you.
You're listening to Let's Go Green here on Midlands 103, and I'm delighted to say that I've been joined now by Let's Go Green listener Sean Hynes. Sean, you're very welcome to the programme.
Thank you very much.
Now, Sean, in recent weeks we've been talking here on the programme about community gardens and really the benefits of them and what one might involve. And I had the pleasure of travelling to Blanchardstown, to the TU Dublin campus, to celebrate the third birthday of the glass community gardens there that have been organised and really created by Global Action Plan Ireland. And off the back of that, you sent me an email. So you might tell the listeners, Sean, what prompted you to get in contact with us?
Well, just after hearing that podcast about Hans and the great work that they've doing. So for the last 11 years, I've been living up in Dublin. And while I was up there, I was involved with one small little community garden called Summer Row, which is very near Crow Park. But then I had to move out further towards the airport. And then when I moved down to Offaly last year, kind of the first thing I did was just Google allotments and community gardens in Tullamore, and then I kind of went further afield and realised that there is, at the time, there was only one community garden, which was in Birr, which was the Growery, which since had to move out, I think. So that there was, I think the lease was up in their land, and they're looking for new land. And then just realising the whole of Offaly, there's no community gardens that I know of. If you go to the community gardens website for Ireland, there's a map, and the whole of Offaly is just bare. Saying that, now Edenderry in the last few weeks have finally kind of got it over the line to get a community garden there. So it's not open yet, I think, but in the next few weeks it will be. And I'm just trying to see if I can get a community garden in Tullamore and in Offaly itself as well.
And what is it about it, considering that you have had the experience of being involved in one before? What has you so determined that, well, Offaly needs one too?
It's a great piece of infrastructure for the community to have. It really does bring everyone together. It's it's like one of those things where during COVID, people started to meet their neighbours because they had to get out and walk and stuff like that. And it's another thing where you could end up meeting your neighbours that you don't even know their name, but you might have been living just 3 doors down, because it brings that community together. It just has it's a focal point where people can meet up and discuss gardening and other stuff. I have a friend who lives in Beaumont in Dublin, and they have a community garden there, a really lovely one. There's a big open green space there behind Beaumont House, kind of a famous pub just next to that.
Yeah.
And it's a big open field, and just right in the corner of it, just kind of off into the corner, there's a little community garden there, a tiny little community garden, but and I've walked around it and stuff like that, and it's just, it's a brilliant little spot. It just gives everyone a kind of a chance to grow some stuff and to meet like-minded people, and it's a kind of an easy win because it doesn't cost that much. It's just a bit of land that can be given for free by the council or rented, or the back of a piece of wasteland from a school or a church or something, and then then the community get involved in it. After that, it doesn't really cost anything, but I think it has a big impact on people, so.
And Sean, you mentioned that when you moved down to Offaly that you looked for community gardens and allotments. So what's the difference between a community garden and an allotment?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like if you go to England, you'll see allotments in every single village, every single town, plenty of them. And I think in Ireland, 50, 60 years ago, there was a lot as well, especially, maybe after World War II, a lot of allotments kind of sprung up. And then they seem to have disappeared. And now there is allotments in Ireland, and there's waiting lists for years just to get them. But allotment is, you rent that one piece of land for yourself, and you grow whatever you want. You put a little shed on it, and then you put a little polytunnel, a greenhouse, and you just grow what you want, and you take it home. Where a community garden is a shared space where the community get together, and they decide, what to grow, and people go. So like in the Summer Row gardens, I was one of the closest people to it. So on a Wednesday, I'd go up during the summer, and I would just water all the plants. So I'd water everything, and then on the Saturday we might be doing some weeding, and whatever was ready to be picked, on the Saturday, we'd pick it and we'd all go home. So you might go home with a load of spinach and a few potatoes, and it was just shared out, and so you'd have people who were maybe retired and had experience in gardening, and other people who had no experience, and all joined together. And you'd have people from different countries that would want to grow different vegetables you haven't heard of, and it's just a great spot. And you mightn't grow a load of food, or definitely you wouldn't survive off it, but it's just a shared community. And then you can go home and grow your own stuff at home, or share seeds and stuff. And then you'd have, maybe a harvest festival. Then I know when we had our one in Summerrow, we got a local pet farm to come in, and we just had a little party for all the people living nearby, because it was right in the centre. As I say, it was right near Mountjoy Square, kind of Crow Park, and we just had a party there, and it just brings everyone together and brings a bit of nature into the city centre.
And I think the wonderful thing about it is as well, and I experienced it myself when I went the other week to see the one in Blanchardstown, was the interest that children have in just getting their hands dirty and learning about things. I remember one of the boys asking them about what their favourite thing in the garden was, and he said the compost bins, and which I just blew my mind, because it's dirty, and it's not the it's not the sexiest of jobs. I expected him to say, well, we get to bring carrots home and we get a nice dinner, but it's just that piece of actually getting children to have an understanding of the environment and where food comes from.
Exactly. That's not just from a supermarket covered in plastic. It actually comes from the ground, and they'll see the dirt being wiped off it, that, and you have to wash it, and you eat it there, and then it's not always clean and pristine and straight, the carrots inside the supermarket have to be straight, and all the wonky ones get thrown out. There you eat it, you wash it, you eat it, so yeah, that's a brilliant thing to have. Maybe I could say if there is anyone else in Tullamore or Offaly that does want to maybe help me with this, because it's definitely more than a one-person job. So I've been on to a few different people. I'm just waiting back for people to get back to me and stuff like that. But if there is anyone else, they could let me know, and we can maybe start a committee or a team or something.
Well, Sean Hynes is a man on a mission to get a community garden, hopefully for Tullamore, but for Offaly overall as well. So if you are also interested, and you've been listening to the conversations that we've been having here in the show about the benefits of community gardens, and you'd like to, help Sean out with the workload, you can get in contact with us here, and we'll pass on your details if that's all right.
Okay, that's perfect. Yes.
Well, Sean Hynes, make sure and keep us up to date now on all this progress. It would be fabulous to see Tullamore get its very own community garden. And thank you for getting in contact with us here on Let's Go Green.
We'll invite you down once it's up and running.
I'd be more than delighted, Sean. Absolutely. Tullamore might not be home for me anymore, but it's always going to be home. So it'd be absolutely wonderful to see it. And look, like Sean got in contact, if there's something that you want us to talk about here on Let's Go Green, do contact us. You can do it through midlands103.com, or you can email me directly, hello@thecommunicationscoach.ie. Sean, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Well, unless you're living under a rock, if you've been in any shop in recent weeks, you know that it's Easter coming up very, very soon. There's bunny rabbits and pastel-coloured bunting in every shop that you can spot. Some of it rather expensive. But how much packaging is involved in all of these festivities? To talk about, the recycling efforts that go into the Easter, I don't know what you call it, a festival, I know, religiously speaking, but all of the decorations, the food and all of that goes into it. We're joined now by the Director of Marketing and Communications for Repak, Niamh Kelly. Niamh, you are very welcome to Let's Go Green.
Thanks very much, Aisling. Lovely to speak with you.
Now, Niamh, I know it's a relatively new phenomenon that Easter is a whole fanfare of bits and bobs you can pick up, and shops, and Easter eggs in themselves have become quite expensive. But there's a lot of packaging involved in all of it, isn't it? And that has to go somewhere.
It does. And I think, look, it's a fantastic occasion, and it's something that from our point of view, we don't want to take away from the occasion. I love an Easter egg myself. I love the chocolate. But it's just asking everyone to be mindful of where they put their packaging once they're finished. So you can have an Easter egg. It's absolutely gorgeous. Our research is showing that, people are spending on average €32 on Easter eggs in the year.
€32?
Probably for multiple Easter eggs.
Wow.
Let's not be mean to ourselves, Aisling. We could have 3 or 4. So if you're buying 3 or 4 Easter eggs, or if you are gifted 3 or 4 Easter eggs, it's just to make sure that your packaging is recycled properly. It's, we've done some research, consumer research nationwide. It's showing that 60% of shoppers say that recyclable packaging is important when choosing their Easter eggs. So it's really good to hear that the people are mindful. I suppose for me, it's looking at the packaging after we've eaten all of that lovely chocolate, that if you have tin foil left over that's around an Easter egg, if it's no chocolate in it, just scrunch it up, put it in the recycling bin. All of your packaging, if it's paper packaging or cardboard, flatten it down, put it in the recycling bin. And I suppose most important is if there's any plastic within that packaging, just separate it from the paper and put it in separately. So it's clean, dry, loose. I'm sure you probably have heard of that before, but in a recycling bin, it's really important. And again, great occasion. We're delighted that people are more mindful. But if there's ways even to reuse your packaging or reduce the packaging, we would ask consumers to have a look at that. Because as you said, there's a good bit of packaging around this time of year.
And now, how important is it? Because I think a lot of people, and especially if there's a few young people around, and the day gets a little bit hectic and maybe a bit messy, things might just get flung in the recycling bin. Why do we need to separate out, say, the cardboard from the plastic to the tinfoil if it's all going in the one recycling bin?
It's all going in the one recycling bin, but I suppose if you follow the journey of a recycling bin, it's being collected by our great recovery operators. It's been brought to a recycling centre and it goes along a conveyor belt. And it's like what we would say about a recycling bin, even in general. A lot of people think they're doing very well when they've a plastic bag with loads of recycling in it. But if you can imagine, that can't be separated by the optical pieces that look over the conveyor belt. So there are little grippers and little areas where it separates into paper, plastic, tinfoil. And if they're in a bag or they're in together, they can't be physically separated. So it's one of these things that if it's loose and it's clean and it's dry, it's like it comes to a section where paper goes one side, plastic goes another, tin foil goes another, so all the different materials that are recyclable go in different directions. And if you have plastic inside a cardboard Easter egg, it can't be separated. So it is very important for the recycling process.
And I know sometimes myself, I might be going around the house and I might have a cardboard box and be popping things into it as I go. And it's so easy to forget to unpack that into the bin. But as you say, it is important that we do it properly so that it can all be recycled and reused properly. Around Easter, how do we tend to do? Because as you say, there's a lot of packaging involved. So are we doing, from what you've seen, are we doing a good job, or could we be doing a bit better in terms of recycling all that packaging from Easter?
Look, I think it would be remiss to say we aren't doing very well, and we're also very conscious of what we're doing. The areas where we could do a little bit more is, again, on the clean, dry, loose. If you put in something into the bin that has food, a considerable piece of food stuck in it, that will contaminate the whole bin. So it means that, all of your recycling efforts, no more than you mentioned earlier about having things in a box. If that box is closed when it goes into the recycling bin and contains 3 or 4 different materials, you've kind of lost the good part of all of your efforts. So really, it's, again, we can always do better. It does take an effort on everybody's behalf. I think a recycling bin is becoming more and more full, which shows me that people are getting better and better at sorting. And it's just really that education piece. If you go onto our repak.ie, you can find out whatever materials and where they go. Another great resource is mywaste.ie. So if you want to know about anything in terms of recycling, food waste, reuse. So there are different options. The education awareness piece is there. We'd always ask people to be mindful, but they've been doing great to date.
And you mentioned then that people are interested in looking for, say, an Easter egg that comes in recyclable packaging. Does it matter then, say, when we're looking at that packaging, like some things you might see are recyclable, some might be biodegradable. Does it all goes in the recycling bin? Is that right?
It does. Again, to my example earlier of the tin foil, if the tin foil had some chocolate in the middle of it, which it would never have if it were me, but if it did, if that tin foil was scrunched up, then that's not good. It has to be free of any kind of food sediment for it to be scrunched up. It's basically clean tin foil. Yeah. So what we want is no food residue. The tiniest bit, yes, is fine. But if there's any, significant amount, it's like the pizza boxes that we speak about on a regular basis. If you leave much of the pizza in it, then it can't be recycled. But if most of it is out of the pizza box, then it's fine to recycle. So people are becoming more conscious. I see from the research as well that, 60% of people would choose an egg if it had less packaging on it. So it has become more mainstream for people to consider more their purchases and what they purchase and how much packaging. But on the other side, and again, if you're gifted Easter eggs, that you would dispose of that packaging responsibly.
And of course, if it comes in a cardboard box that, has a clear back on it, it can be used as a canvas, or you can cut it up into all sorts of shapes. Like it is school holiday times as well. So, we need to get creative.
Absolutely. And I mean, reuse is fantastic. We've so many stories from our Repak members on businesses that are recycling their items and how they're recycling and what they're reusing them for, or how they refill rather than actually get rid of items. That kind of take, make, dispose type of economy is gone. We're going much more circular. So yeah, if you can use it for something else, if there's kind of a Blue Peter moment where you're making bits and pieces, or there's arts and crafts, absolutely. I mean, there's so many ways that different things can be reused within the house.
Now, Niamh, we are talking a couple of days out from the big day. So if there happens to be anybody from the Kelly household listening in, what would your preferred piece of chocolate be?
Oh, God. There are so many to choose from, Aisling. I am a little bit of a chocolate fiend. I do like Lindt. I do like Cadbury's. Nothing like a Marvellous Creations with a little bit of popping candy.
Oh, very nice. Well, I hope if there's somebody from the Kelly household listening, you've gotten that memo, because you have about 6 days to get that one sorted. Well, Niamh Kelly, Marketing and Communications Director with Repak, thank you so much for joining us on Let's Go Green.
Thanks a million, Aisling.
You're listening to Let's Go Green here on Midlands 103. Now, I know that as the clocks sprung forward yesterday, more of us, we hope, will be out and about enjoying the longer, fine evenings. And, well, that will involve youngsters out on bikes and, unfortunately, e-scooters. I had an awful incident a couple of days ago while I was driving my car, and I came upon a roundabout where I did have right of way, but a child came out on an e-scooter and gave me an awful fright, and I think I gave him an awful fright. But what really bothered me about it, and the reason I'm talking about it, is the child in question, well, his head barely reached the handlebars of the e-scooter, and I knew, had I not been able to stop my car, he was not in a position to stop the motor that he was driving and he was in control of. And, it's on these spring evenings when youngsters can get out and get some fresh air and freedom, and that's wonderful, and we all want to do it. but we do need to be extra cautious on the roads, to slow down near housing estates or schools. And if there are young people in our lives, make sure that if they are using any kind of, whether it's a bike, a pedal scooter or an electronic device of some kind, that they have the physical strength to stop it when it needs to happen, and that they know the rules of the road and that they don't necessarily always have right of way. And I don't want to be a joy kill, because I'm sure they're an awful lot of fun to be up on. But, we've seen far too many fatalities on our roads in recent weeks and months, and I don't want to see another summer of them. So please do take care when you're out and about at the roads. It's particularly busy farming season as well at the moment, so there will be more agricultural vehicles on the road, particularly as we head into the summer months. So it is, I thought, worth taking a moment just to remind us all to slow down and to be mindful of the road in front of us. But in particular, that if we do have youngsters in our lives, that they're only let out unsupervised when they're physically capable of taking care of themselves, and they really and truly do know the rules of the roads backwards and forwards, so that they can keep themselves safe and that they don't cause an accident or cause an injury to another person. I hope you enjoyed our programme on Let's Go Green this week. As I said, if anybody is interested in joining with Sean Hynes to create that community garden for Tullamore, please do drop me a line, hello@thecommunicationscoach.ie, and I will put you in contact with Sean. It would be wonderful to see one in Tullamore, particularly now that I've actually seen one in action myself, and just how beautiful and peaceful places they can be, and what a benefit that they can be for all of us as well. We will not be here this time next week with Let's Go Green because it's a bank holiday and we get bank holidays off here on the show. But I will be back in 2 weeks' time with another edition of Let's Go Green. But in the meantime, if you've ever missed an episode, please do go to your preferred podcast app and look for Let's Go Green with Aisling O'Rourke. Please do remember to hit that follow button and the bell icon beside that. And that means that every time a new episode goes live, you will get a notification to your phone. If you enjoy Let's Go Green here on Midlands 103, please do give us a comment on an episode or write us a review, or even better, get in contact with me directly and suggest an item for the show, just like Sean did for this week's episode. And that email one more time, hello@thecommunicationscoach.ie. Happy Easter. I hope you get some rest over the bank holiday. Let's keep our fingers crossed that we get a couple of dry days so we all get to get out and about and enjoy them. Stay safe and stay tuned to Midlands 103.